Okay, this is the fastest, most overkill gaming PC that I've ever built. Just under 10 liters with a 5090, but honestly, given the state of the PC market right now, I wasn't even sure I would ever get to do this. You see, some of you might remember when I first built in the T1 like 9 months ago, I said this. I would love to get my hands on a 5090, but that's like having a good KD on hotel Wi-Fi. Near impossible. Well, after nearly 300 days of trying, I finally managed to catch a 5090 restock, and that sent me down a rabbit hole. You see, the T1's kind of a weird case because the GPU actually goes in first, and then you build everything else around that. So I figured if I have to do a full teardown to swap out the GPU anyway, why not switch some things up? And that's exactly what I did. Now for the CPU, we are sticking with the AMD Ryzen 9800X3D. It's still one of the best gaming CPUs on the market. It pairs really nicely with the 5090, and honestly, probably most importantly, the cooling for it isn't that demanding, so it works really well in these small form factor style builds. And on a similar note, I also kept the same motherboard, the Asus B850i. This thing is an absolute powerhouse of an ITX motherboard. It's got massive heat sinks, a ton of port options on the back, and most importantly, the clearance is still good for the CPU cooler that we went with, which we'll talk about in a second. I also went ahead and kept the storage and the RAM the same as well. 4 terabytes of M.2 storage from Corsair and 64 gigabytes of DDR5 RAM as well. Honestly, again, given the prices of the PC market, it didn't even make sense to try and upgrade or get new parts for this, but it also wasn't even necessary. So totally fine with what we got. Okay, so all that being said, we of course did switch things up for the new build, and I personally think they were a big improvement. First up, I actually removed the original AM5 bracket and swapped it out for this AM5 contact frame from Thermal Grizzly. This should not only provide increased stability and prevent unwanted stress on the processor, but it also improves the cooler's contact pressure, which helps with heat transfer. Long story short, it should keep things tidy and more importantly, give us the best chance at solid thermals in this build. I went ahead and paired that with the Thermal Grizzly AM5 backplate as well, which will also make it easier to install the new CPU cooling for this build. Once all that's lined up, we can go ahead and install our CPU, making sure things are seated properly before tightening down, and now it's time for our CPU cooler. And this is where the build really starts to take a turn from the 4091. We're actually switching to full air cooling in this case. Now, I've gone for the Thermalite AX P90 X47 in full copper here, which I've seen quite a few other T1 builds use successfully, but we're swapping out the stock fan for this one from Noctua, which apparently performs a little bit better. Okay, but why am I actually switching to air cooling in this build? I know that seems like a downgrade, but there's 3 main reasons. 1, air cooling is just a lot tidier. There's way less to manage, and when you're building in such a compact case, that does matter. 2, I actually have plans for the AIO with another build, so I'm going to be repurposing it to that. And 3, I did do plenty of research on this. The thermals seem totally fine in builds with very similar specs, so I'm not that worried that this is actually going to be harder to keep cool. We'll see how the thermals are at the end of the build, but the motherboard is officially prepped and we're ready to start building, so let's go ahead and start with the 5090. Okay, so since I first did my build, Form just come out with this T1 GPU travel kit, which essentially does what it sounds like. It just secures the GPU a little bit better during transit. Now this is good for me because I bring my PC to the studio a lot for filming and things like that, but the 5090 version has been out of stock forever. However, somebody also got fed up with that and they made their own version to 3D print. Shout out to you. Hello. We are currently 3D printing this in polycarbonate. For the second time, we're using polycarbonate because higher heat resistance, hopefully won't melt in the build, things like that. But the first time I printed it, the tolerance for the supports just came out so terrible. It was really hard to remove them. So I'm hoping second time's the charm. We've got things dialed and then we can get this into the case. Where is it? Into the case. Thankfully, the supports came off way easier the second time, so definitely worth the reprint. And now I can show you guys how this all fits into the actual build. For the 3D prints, we can start by first getting the IO bracket assembled. I'd highly recommend using flat screws here as opposed to countersunk ones, but this was all I had in the studio and it did seem to work fine. Once that's all done, we can attach the IO bracket to the rear bracket of the T1 and move on to preparing the 5090. First up, we have to prep the riser bar with the new standoff configuration for the 5090. This consists of a 40mm standoff for the 3-slot configuration of the case and 2 20mm standoffs in the mounting points of the riser bar. I also went ahead and added 2 5mm standoffs to the power supply mounting bracket while we were at it so we can get as much airflow as possible. For the GPU itself, we first need to remove the stock rear IO plate since we'll be mounting the card directly to our 3D print. And then we can move to the other side and remove these tiny front screws to add to the anti-sag bracket mount, which conveniently also has a place to store these screws so you don't lose track of them, which I definitely would have. From there, we attach the 5090 onto our printed rear panel panel using the original I/O screws, and finally attach our anti-sag bracket to the GPU mount. And with all of that done, we can finally start reassembling our case. Now look, I will be the first one to admit I was definitely not that comfortable attaching a $2,000 graphics card to a 3D print, but as soon as I felt the strength of the polycarbonate, my worries were pretty quickly eliminated. It feels super sturdy. With that done, we can go ahead and reattach the riser cable bar we prepped earlier, which is now perfectly aligned with the GPU. And what I'm doing here is adding a slight bend to the riser cable just to keep it as far away from the 5090 as possible. The next step is going to be installing our prepped motherboard. I also went ahead and used this as a chance to plug in the riser cable, and then we can go ahead and install the power supply as well. I'm going for the Corsair SF1000 again in this build, which probably comes as no surprise. It's a great power supply for this form factor, and 1000 watts is actually, I think, the lowest that the 5090 is rated for, so it should work perfectly with that. I do have custom length cables here as well from Bespoke Baca, which I ended up using for the motherboard and CPU, but for the graphics card, I decided to keep the stock cable. With people having issues with pins burning and things like that, honestly didn't want to risk it, but also with the new angled connector of the 5090, it makes managing the cables super easy anyway. You don't really need a custom solution here. Now this is where things get a little bit more fun. For the top fans, I decided to 3D print this fan shroud from EGA. It should both help with directing airflow a bit better, but as you'll see later in the build, it also does a great job of concealing cables. Now, one thing I've never done with my 3D prints is use heat set inserts. So I was a bit nervous to do this at first, but it was actually pretty straightforward. And man, now that I've experienced doing heat set inserts in 3D prints, I'm not sure I can ever go back. It just makes fastening parts together so much easier, or in this case, the fans to the actual shroud screwed in perfectly. And once we got the fan shroud fastened down to our build, that was pretty much everything done. So it's time to actually turn it on and test it out. Absolute mess here, but we're gonna do a first boot and just hope everything is all right. Let it start. Okay, I think I had the power switch wired backwards, so I swapped that around. Now we're gonna see. Fingers crossed. Okay, everything looks good. Got no fan noises, nothing, no wire scraping or anything like that. Let's just see if we get a boot. Oh, monitor just came on. Hey, there we go. Okay. Pro tip, don't be like me and connect the power button the wrong way. It will give you a heart attack, but thankfully it was as simple as switching it around and we're good to go. And with that, I am so happy with how this build turned out. But the real question is, how are the thermals? Are they okay? And the answer is yes. Based on my research, pretty much everyone said that undervolting the 5090 was mandatory in order to keep the temps manageable in this build. And that is true, but you really don't see that much of a performance loss. This is not really a hardcore benchmarking channel. I'm gonna go ahead and put a couple of the results that I had up on screen just so you can see for comparison. But I saw minimal frame drops here with much more manageable temps. So yeah, undervolting the 5090 was absolutely a no-brainer. Every time I do one of these small form factor builds, I'm just left so satisfied. I can't believe how much performance you can pack into this tiny of a footprint. I think the next step for me is to actually bring this home and get it into my main setup, which I'll hopefully have a setup tour for you guys on that at some point soon. But in the meantime, thanks for watching. Let me know if you have any questions, and I'll see you soon.